And we're back on the campaign trail. Just a few more days till Nebraska's primary election, and we have caught up now with State Senator Tom Carlson, who is running for governor of Nebraska. We caught up with him on the campaign trail at Aurora Cooperative in Aurora. Senator, let's just talk about how the campaign's going.
Well, we had our last debate last night in Omaha, and now we're out on the road today, and we're going to stay there until we get home probably midnight on the 12th, and then we watch the results on the 13th.
All right, let's get to the issues. We all know agriculture is the key to the economy. That's one of your pillars that you're running on, your knowledge of agriculture. But let's maybe explain to the folks what you want to see done and how you'll lead Nebraska agriculture if you become governor.
Well, I think that my experience really lends itself. I am a friend of agriculture. Of course, I've been in the legislature for 8 years now. 4 of those years as chair of the Ag Committee, and the last 2 years as chair of the Natural Resource Committee, which works on water issues. And this last session, LB 1098 was passed. That was my biggest bill in my 8 years. And it establishes a new Natural Resource Commission that will make judgments and evaluations on water projects that contribute to water sustainability in the state. And for once, we have it funded through the Water Sustainability Fund, so there's money there that groups can apply with projects, and if those projects are approved and they do contribute to water sustainability, they'll be completed. And we can reach the water sustainability level in the state, which is just absolutely key to not only agriculture, but the entire state.
You're probably known as Senator Water. I don't know if you really set out for that 8 years ago, but as we look at statewide leadership, not only the challenges we know in your district in southwest Nebraska, but trying to bring water equality to the metropolitan areas as well. Moving forward, how will you lead as governor to make sure if we can find an equitable water solution for the state?
Well, let me say in my 8 years, Senator Christensen's done a lot of work on water issues too, so we work together. But I believe that water sustainability means that on average, and we have wet and dry years, but we need to reach a point in Nebraska where on average we're not using any more water than what our supply gives us. And if we are using more, we've got 2 things we can do. We can cut back what we're using, or we can increase the supply. And I like to tell people we have 2 sources of supply, precipitation and water that flows into the state. And I know the one that's in charge of precipitation, and I talk to him every day, but he knows better what we need than I do. But we have 1 million acre-feet flowing into the state from the west and the north every year, and 8 million acre-feet flowing out. And so when we have opportunity with excess flows, we've got to capture more of that water in wet years and save it and use it in dry years. And that takes some projects that would rehab reservoirs, rehab canals, and build some new structures. And that's what LB 1098 is all about, setting us on a path so that we can do what we need to do to reach the point of water sustainability where we have increased our supply. And when we do that, we will be in the best financial position of any state in the United States, and our agriculture and livestock production will be secure for generations into the future.
Let's talk finance. The budget, of course, Nebraska has to have a balanced budget, but I'm sure you're still hearing from a lot of folks as you're on the campaign trail, reduce my property tax, reduce my tax burden. How will a Carlson administration lead to do that?
Well, the thing we hear most is property tax. And I believe property tax pays too much of K-12 education. It pays about 55%. I think it ought to pay 50 or 45%. Now, if we actually could do that, that would take legislative action. And if it took legislative action, it would also require a change in our state aid formula. And it's rather complicated. We did have a bill, this session didn't get out of committee, that would have lowered ag land valuations from 75% of market value to 65%. I would have voted for it. But that alone isn't going to solve the problem. We have to have the change in the formula. And then, if we cut back, which we should, on how much of K-12 education property tax pays, that means there's more of a burden on sales and income tax. And how do you do that? Well, you do that if you've got a healthy, improving, vibrant economy where you have a substantial increase in private sector jobs every year. And that has to happen. When it does, we'll have the revenue. And we not only can reduce property taxes, we can reduce income taxes, but it's based on a significant increase in private sector jobs. That means a healthy economy. That's what we want in the state.
A lot of folks say in order to grow a healthy economy, we need a strong education system. And so, as you can see, all these things all work together. You talked briefly about the formula plan, the school finance formula plan, other things. Will we be at a point where we can continue to do our best to get a equitable education system, whether you're in a small D2 school or Lincoln or Omaha? That seems to be probably a concern you're hearing in the rural areas.
Well, it is, and every student deserves the opportunity to earn a quality education. I would like to encourage every school system in the state, every school district in the state, to take it upon itself to see that when a senior graduates from high school, they leave with a marketable skill, either in the trades or in technology. Now, if that happened and kids don't go on to college, there'll be a job for them, and it won't be minimum wage. And that skill is so important. If they do go on to college, they'll have a better part-time job. So that is all really important. We want to continue our excellence in education.
As we continue to talk about all these issues, bringing them all together, but one I think we've even talked about before is kind of that one Nebraska. We see a lot of divide, and you've seen the unicameral, Omaha and Lincoln, and then kind of the rest of the state. Can you unify Nebraska and to kind of to work together as one to strengthen from all the way from Omaha to Scottsbluff?
Well, I think that we can. And this is where my experience and the fact that I'm the only candidate on the Republican ticket that lives in rural Nebraska. I've lived there most of my life. And for Nebraska to proceed forward in a good manner, both urban Nebraska and rural Nebraska has to prosper. Now, it's possible right now, and I'm all for Lincoln and Omaha, but they can prosper and not necessarily rural Nebraska. But when we prosper out in rural Nebraska, so does Lincoln and Omaha. So for the state to move forward, we've got to have prosperity, both rural and urban. And I understand that, and I will.
One of the things we always ask the candidates is to set themselves apart. So, and what makes you unique? But everybody seems to claim to be a conservative. Everybody kind of has those same bellwether things that you all kind of agree on. So, give me your definition of a conservative, and then what makes you unique as we look at separating the candidates that want to be governor?
Well, a conservative is someone who watches state spending and watches taxes, and we need a competitive and fair tax climate. All of us agree on that, and I think that's really important. Well, it's really imperative that in rural Nebraska we have good cell phone coverage, and we don't have it all the way now, and it's problematic for us when we travel. We see that that's the case, and you lose service. That's got to be fixed, and we've got to have fast internet throughout the entire state. For rural Nebraska to move forward and prosper economically, that has to be there. And I think government can play a part in that. But we've got to solve that problem. And that puts rural Nebraska in a better position to bring people in for jobs, and people move here because of the quality of life, because there's nothing to compare to it in rural Nebraska. I understand that, and I will pursue that as governor.
All right, Tom Carlson, state senator from Holdrege, one of the candidates seeking the Republican nomination for governor of Nebraska. On the campaign trail at Aurora Cooperative in Aurora for AgView, I'm Ken Rahjes.
Pursue